See, they're coming in. Yes. Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
Okay. Good morning and welcome to everyone. Good morning. This is our second appointment of the year of the EU Payment Observatory. The second appointment is dedicated to a very important topic, which is late payment in government to business transactions. My name is Antonella Correra. I'm the Legal and Policy Officer in the European Commission dealing with the implementation of the Late Payment Directive. And I have the pleasure to be joined today by our distinguished guests, Kallio P. Furneri from the Chamber of Commerce of Luxembourg and Alessandro Bartoloni from the Ministry of the Economy in Italy. I have also would like also take the opportunity to thank all the team of the European Payment Observatory, Beatrice, Gabriele, Alice, Cinzia, Frederic, Alice, and all the others for the drafting of this report. So without further ado, let me just give a little bit of the scene setting of our meeting today. And I think there is no better way than doing it than with quoting the Late Payment Directive. Recital 23 of the Late Payment Directive states the following: public authorities benefit from more secure, predictable, and continuous revenue streams than undertakings. They can also have access to finance at more attractive conditions than companies. Late payments and long payment terms by public authorities lead to unjustified costs to undertakings. And then recital 6 of the Late Payment Directives that states that public authorities have a special responsibility in ensuring that the provisions on prompt payment are compliant with and ensuring that companies receive their payments on time. So despite this, late payments by government is still a persisting problem. And this is what Bea will present to us today, which is presented in the report. It was also an item that was very prominent in our annual report of the European Payment Observatory. We have also come across this through our enforcement actions in the European Commission. Last year, the European Court of Justice issued 2 judgments against 2 member states, stating that the member states have not complied with the Late Payment Directive because of the systematic payment delays of their public authorities to their suppliers. There are 2 more infringement proceedings against other 2 member states pending in the European Court of Justice. Actually 3 pending judgments. And we also, the European Commission also opened a new infringement against another member states. A recent survey from a French company indicated that only in France, almost 50% of companies of SMEs are reluctant to take part in public procurement contracts because of the fear of getting paid late. And a recent survey by a Spanish multi-stakeholder platform indicated that subcontractors to main contractors of public procurements are paid systematically on average at around 88 days. So both the Letta report and the Draghi report highlight public procurement as being a catalyst for competitiveness and as being a very important tools to promote and fostering the competitiveness of businesses. But as long as late payments continue in a systematic, persistent and pervasive way, it's the true potential of public procurement cannot be tapped. So without further ado, I will now leave the floor to Bea from CEPS, and she will present the results and the main highlights of the thematic report on government to business payments. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. You can see my screen, right? Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. So thank you very much, Antonella. And indeed, we agree with you about the importance of G2B late payments. We think there are basically two main arguments. One is economic. Because of the importance of government expenditure in the European economy, it was 50% of EU GDP in 2022. Moreover, unpaid liabilities also was a significant share of EU GDP, 1.7%. or 282 billions, according to Eurostat. Of course, not all of these are late payments, but it gives us an idea about the importance and the impact that late payments by governments can have in cash flows of the entire EU. And in that regard, this can have, as you were mentioning, Antonella, an impact on the competitiveness of companies because it reduces their capacity to operate and their capacity to invest. It can have an impact on unemployment, it can raise unemployment, it can have an impact on also other government programs such as green transition, digital transition, because companies have less money to invest on those transitions. And there is also even, in the report you can see it, studies showing that there is a correlation between government, longer average payment periods by governments and bankruptcies. So overall, we can say that it is in the own interest of governments to prevent G2B late payments because governments want their economies to function well and be efficient, and that doesn't happen if there are lots of late payments, and especially if there are lots of G2B late payments. And then in addition, the other argument is that actually what we intend to do here is to change the culture of prompt payments across the EU. And to do that, governments need to simply lead by example because no company is going to change the way they operate. They are not going to invest on more efficient process if they don't see that governments are doing the same. If they don't see that governments are also committed to change their own payment practices. So that's the reason why we think this is a very important topic. It's also, of course, acknowledged in the Late Payments Directive that puts more stringent payment terms for governments. And well, what we try to do with this report is to try to figure out how big is the problem. We try to do it through desk research. We try to do it through interviews and also looking into data. And very, very soon we noticed that basically there is a big problem, which is that existing data on G2B transactions in Europe is just not good enough to provide a comprehensive view of the state of G2B late payments in the EU. And this is because there is very little data. Only 6 member states are publishing data on the payment performance of their public administration. There is another one that has given to us some data, but also the coverage of this data produced by member states, varies a lot. Some member states, namely Spain, Italy, and France, really really provide a lot of information, and we can know basically how every public administration in those member states pay. But others have a lower coverage, lower granularity. We only know how certain of the police authorities pay. So it's very difficult to compare using member states data. And also for 6 member states, there is no data at all. One of them is Luxembourg, and we are going to have participants later from Luxembourg, so that's going to be very interesting. There is, however, also some supplier sources based on surveys. The most relevant one, I would say, is Intrum, because it covers several member states, so it allows us to make some comparisons. Nevertheless, there is also a limitation regarding these two kinds of different sources, which is that there are big discrepancies between data by governments and suppliers, and this is also due to methodological differences. For instance, governments use DSO while suppliers use simply average payment period. There is differences of the, let's say, on the way in which the clock starts ticking with regards to when I start counting average payment periods. There is difference between if counting invoice paid or all invoices. There are multiple methodological differences that account for these big discrepancies, and that are a challenge in reaching conclusions with regards to G2B late payments. In any case, despite these limitations, we can indeed reach some conclusions. And well, as I was saying, Intrum actually allows us to compare several member states, and actually the data by Intrum is very worrisome, because what they are saying, and here we have the data from 2023, but it's also in every other year that we are covering, that in every member state, suppliers are saying that governments pay later than business, which is extremely worrisome, particularly as we were saying that governments should lead by example. Then also what Intrum is telling us is that there is a deterioration in average payment periods by government since 2020. So both very worrisome trends. However, not everything that we can figure out and that we have found out in the basis of data is bad. In that regard, as I said, there are 3 countries that are really have a very big coverage with regards to their data on late payments by public administrations: France, Italy, and Spain. And these are also the 3 governments that are taking more measures to combat G2B late payments and have long-term strategies, etc. And the good news is that basically what they are reporting is that their payment periods are diminishing in the 3 member states. So when measures are taken, the outcome seems to be positive. And this is also confirmed by suppliers in France and Spain, although not in Italy. Another thing that we found out while looking into government data, and particularly in these 3 countries that really have a big coverage, is that we cannot say that a specific layer of the government, a specific level, such as the central, regional, or local, are the worst payer. In every one of the 3 member states, it's a different, let's say, public authority level that pays later. So this probably points to different in a cultural different in the way that the governments work, that cause those late payments, but we cannot pinpoint a specific government level. Then, well, with regard, another indication that about the severity of late payments in G2B is indeed the infringement procedures to which Antonella was referring to. 7 member states have been warned by the European Commission, 5 have been referred to the European Court of Justice, and actually there has been a ruling against 3 of them: Italy, Portugal, and Slovakia. However, we are not just talking here about late payments, but we also want to highlight the problem of unfair payment practices on G2B transactions. This is a business transaction, and as in every business transactions, there is a difference in the power that each one of the parties in that business transactions have. And this is particularly severe when we are talking about SMEs. Very often for SMEs, that are involved in public procurement. Governments is the biggest client or even their only client, so they are very vulnerable to unfair payment practices. And what we have found out and what we have seen in our desk research, in our interviews, etc., is that there are many, many examples of these unfair payment practices with regards to G2B. Here are a few examples, such as unjustifiably extending verification periods, already identifying irrelevant minor issues, in the invoices, request to delay or postpone the issuing of invoices, bans on assignments of credit, such as factoring, bans on execution, etc. You can read them there. Another thing that we want to highlight is that not all sectors are affected equally, but basically those sectors that are more reliant on public contracts are particularly vulnerable. And in the report, we highlight two of them, which is the healthcare sector, which is a very critical sector, and for which suppliers are complaining of very, very long payment times. We have a stakeholder, the medical devices industry, that gave us some data, and they are reporting very long payment times, which reach even up to 200 days in Portugal and Greece. We also have some data from governments. It's not that bad everywhere. For instance, Italy is an example of a good case, but in some cases it is indeed very bad. So Portugal again is giving us, it has very, very good data with regards to payments to the healthcare sectors. And they are saying that in the year that there was that the average payment periods by governments to the healthcare sector was lower, which was 2023, the average payment period was of 125 days. So extremely, extremely long. There are many of the infringement procedures that have been opened by the European Commission refer to the healthcare sector. And there are also some unfair payment practices that are very particular to the healthcare sector, such as clawback clauses. The other sector that we highlighted is the construction one, which is particularly exposed because of this long supply chain, because it has lots of SMEs, and because of the need of verification procedures on the conformity of the services provided, which makes it very vulnerable to unfair payment practices. For instance, by unduly delaying verification procedures, or by just finding, let's say, lame excuses to not giving this to not proceeding in this verification procedure, etc. There is not much data on the construction. We only have a survey by the Italian construction sector, and this one is indicating 150 days payment times, but again, this is only in one country. We also wanted to look into the drivers of G2B late payments because, as Antonella pointed out, actually governments have very stable revenue streams, and they have the capacity to prevent these late payments. So why is this happening? So what we found is that actually there are liquidity problems. These are coming from mostly badly planned budgets and poor financial management. So basically not planning all your expenses, which results in not having money to pay. Then there can be also unexpected expenses. There can be problem with transfer of funds between public administrations because it's not the same public administration that it's receiving the fund that the one that is paying it. So there can be some inefficiencies there. There can also be organizational problems such as lack of resources to handle the invoices, inadequate or inefficient financial management tools, problem in managing complex payments, such as the ones that require verification procedures, lack of skills, for instance, with regards to managing financial management tools, other internal organizational issues that cause inefficiencies. And of course, there are also behavioral reasons. Civil servants do not always know about the importance of late payments, and they do not always prioritize paying on time. So this can result in late payments. Then finally, we wanted to look into measures. Which measures can be taken to reduce G2B late payments? As said, there are 3 member states that have taken lots of measures, and we actually have 3 case studies in the report on them, on France, Italy, and Spain. So to give a little bit more data into it, but basically we can find several different kinds of measures. We can find liquidity measures that are normally used to solve specific issues. For instance, we saw them with regards to the crisis, that many liquidity measures were taken. We also have organizational measures that have more long-term effects in general because they change the way that payments are done, and they improve the efficiency of public authorities. Some particularly effective ones are the ones regarding to digitalization and invoicing. We have another thematic report on this, actually. And there can also be educational measures to raise visibility about the importance of late payments and raise awareness, and skill enhancement measures, for instance, to teach civil servants to use financial management tools. There can be incentives, sanctional measures, and something that we wanted to highlight is the importance of monitoring and transparency. So if you want to really fix the late payments of your public authorities, you need to know how big is the problem, and for that you need to have data. And we saw at the beginning that there is very limited data with regards to this. But you also need data to, if you impose measures, to check if they are working. So that's why monitoring and transparency it's extremely important, and it's something that and it's not by chance that the 3 member states that are taking more measures with regards to E2B late payments are also the ones that are and that are collecting and publishing more data. And then, well, some final takeouts of this analysis is that, well, with regards to the measures, there is no one-size-fits-all solutions. Every public administration has their own problems, and then the measures have to be addressed to fix those. Then also that measures are most effective not in isolation, but when part of a plan, strategies, that with initiatives that complement and reinforce each other. In that regard, late payments is not an issue that you can solve from one day to the other. A long-term strategy focused on addressing the root causes of late payments is needed in order to produce lasting results, and to actually change, because that's what we are trying to do, to change the culture of the culture of payments within the public administration. And to change the culture, it takes time. So it's necessary to invest time, invest resources and patience to create those conditions. And in that regard, I want to highlight one country, which I'm going to go back to the interim survey, and we see that France is the country that, according to Supplier, has the lower average payment period. And France is actually the country that has been trying to change their payment practices and trying to improve their G2B, the G2B payments for longer. Their observatory is there since 1992, and it is a clear example of a long strategy working, but of course, this takes a lot of time. And with that, I'm going to stop my presentation, and I'm looking forward to hear now from our panelists.
Thank you very much, Beatrice, for this very comprehensive and interesting presentation. I will now pass to the moderated session, but before I move to that, if there are any questions, you will find in the lower part of your screen a Q&A button. Please introduce your question there, and we will try to reply to them during the session. So now I pass the floor to our guests. Our first guest is Alessandro Bartoloni from the Ministry of Economy and Finance in Italy. Alessandro, you come from Italy. Italy was the first member state to having been to receive a judgment from the Court of Justice in 2020 for the violation of the Late Payment Directive of its public authorities. Since then, however, Italy has put in place a wide array of measures precisely to address what Beatrice was indicating. So in many cases was covering the lack of budget, so better budgeting, but there were also measures to address the skills and the awareness of the public officials, also improving the efficiency of the public machine and the process and procedures for payments. You also have been probably the first member states, together with Spain, to have a systematic platform for the collection of invoices and monitoring the payment of invoices. So, Alessandro, it would be very useful to know what Italy is doing, also because there is a specific milestone in the National Recovery and Resiliency Plan for Italy, also to improve payment performance in the public sector. So I think our audience would be very curious to know about what is being done in Italy at this stage. So the floor is yours, Alessandro.
Yes, thank you very much, Antonella. You made a great introduction, actually. And okay, let's start. I will share, if you allow me, a little presentation. Okay, I don't know if you can see it. Okay, I hope you can see it. Basically, that's the situation is a little bit complex, but it's improving a lot. Now my presentation, I'm from the Ministry of Economy and Finance, and my presentation is divided in two parts, basically. In the first one, I will show you some numbers because I would like to share with you the trends and the results that are rooted in numbers, so quantitative analysis. And then after that, I would like to tell you the tools that we implemented in order to solve criticalities and to reach the results that you will see. Then, of course, if you have questions, I will be happy to answer them. So let's start with some numbers, as I told you. But first of all, let me tell you what we are talking about, because in Italy, government to business transaction are a tiny fraction of business to business transaction, because we are talking about less than 10%. Okay, they're very important, as you pointed out, but from a quantitative point of view, the business to business transaction are much bigger. In general, now we reach in 2024 31 millions of electronic invoices or equivalent documents. It's an increase from 2018, and these that I'm showing you are official numbers that are retrieved from an electronic platform that concentrate all the electronic invoices and the payments. So we have a centralized technical tools in Italy developed in 2016 and now and every day it's updated, of course, in which we collect all the information. Granularity is the invoice, the granularity, so it's very specific. And so we can make aggregation starting from the single invoice or the equivalent document. Here I aggregated for you this information in for three sectors: central administration, regional and local authority, and national health service bodies. In these three groups, you have more than 22,000 public administrations, okay, and almost 800,000 suppliers. So it's a lot of information. So also from a technical point of view, it's not easy to manage it, but the results that we can show are very strong and cannot be compared with the private sector results. The private sector companies and their associations, they are very important to provide us qualitative information or some quantitative information regarding specific criticalities, regarding specific administrations or specific suppliers that have difficulties. Of course, also what you were talking about, unfair practices, their information is very important, but from a quantitative and aggregated point of view, our data are the most precise and coherent, also from a methodological point of view. So these are that you see now are the number of invoices that are issued in Italy from the business sector to the governmental sector. And also, I can show you the amount issued from 2018 until 2024. 2024 are actually our preliminary figures because in the first months we wait, but I was allowed to show you this figure also for 2024. We reach almost we reached 200 billions of euros of amount, and also the amount paid, as you can see, it's increasing a lot, and we have more than 95% of the on average of amounts that are paid. Of course, there are some criticalities. Not all public administration are paying are paying well, but on average, we have very good performance from this point of view. Then, also, it's very important to underline the decline in the payment and delay period. As you can see from this slide, we calculate usually with a weight average, but because this takes more into account the liquidity problem for the suppliers, because of course, from their point of view, it's more important to have an early payment for bigger invoices. But of course, we have also data of simple averages that are not, but there is no a big difference. So as you can see, the payment period declined from 48 days until now more or less 30 days. This is a national average that takes into account also the national health services bodies that, as you know, are allowed to pay up to 60 days. So the performance is very good from my point of view, and it's demonstrated with the numbers. The payment period is calculated, as you know, with a difference between the date in which the invoice or the equivalent document is paid and the date in which that document is issued, whereas the delay time is calculated as a difference between the date in which the invoice is paid and the date in which it expires, so the expiration date. Of course, in both indicators, we take into account suspension periods. Now, I would like to show you, before going to the tools, I would like to show you two slides that takes into account a specific sector, the construction sector, because as we heard also today, there are complaints from private companies that in Italy, the public administration is not paying as well as in the other sectors. Well, the fact that that's not true, because we made a study taking into account the first semester of 2024, and as you can see, we have an average payment time that's in line with the other sectors. For in general, the state administrations and all the other sector, with the only exception of the other entities that are paying worst. But in the other sector, the administration, the state administration on the left, the region and province, and the second bars, and the national health bodies and third bars. As you can see, the construction sector in the orange are paid better than the national averages. And this is also true not only for payment time, but also for the delay time. And here, with the exception of the other entities, and in fact, in their case, they're paid. They're not paid on time. So this is a quantitative analysis. Of course, there is much more to say. I'm open to question if you have them. But before closing and pass the floor to my distinguished colleague from Luxembourg, I would like to tell you which are the tools. The first and most important tools, of course, are laws. Here you have the most important laws that we implemented in the last years. And I can go into details later if you want. And these laws takes in these and other laws that I didn't put here because there are many, you can believe me. And these laws regards various aspects of these transactions. We have technical solutions that we implemented from 2016 onwards. These are very important because we centralize the invoices that are issued, and we also centralize the transmission of the payments. So when a public administration is paying, we have an automatic system that allows us at the Ministry of Economic and Finance to know if that electronic invoice has been paid and when, of course. Then we have very important reputational sanctions. In Italy, they are not, in my opinion, well used because we need then to spread the information in a local newspaper, for example, if you want them to be very effective. But in principle, in the website of the Ministry of Economy and Finance and in the website of the presidency, we have all the data administration by administration. So for more than 22,000 administrations, we have their time, the time and the delay time and the payment time, the number of invoices, the amount that's paid, everything. So that's important information. We have monetary sanctions and contributions, which are really the most important, in my opinion, tools. The contributions are both loans and grants. Sanctions, I can go into details later if you want, but in the European Commission reports are already reported. Then we have organizational measures that are implemented, that have been implemented in 2023 and 2024, are pretty new. And then, of course, it's very important to have controls because you can have the best laws on earth, but if you have no the technical possibility to implement them and you have no controls, then they are useless. And we have two kinds of controls. We have internal controls within each public entity. And we have an external, so it's decentralized, and we have a centralized external control that we made at the Ministry of Economy and Finance. So that's all for now. I hope it was useful and interesting, as I already told you. If you have questions, and I can answer them.
Thank you very much, Alessandro. Grazie for this very comprehensive presentation. I don't know whether there are some specific questions you would like to... I see a question for you, Alessandro, here in the chat. I'll just read it. You did not cover the par condition creditorum. For example, in some invoices in Italy are paid extremely quick, and others are never paid to citizens. So, for example, so this some SMEs cannot afford all the late payments, and sometimes they are put out of businesses because of the delay. So this is also something that perhaps we have also encountered in our assessments. It is, for example, that we see that especially in the weighted payments. So there is a tendency for some administrations to pay a limited number of invoices, but are very big, so they contribute more to the weight. Whereas invoices that are owed to SMEs that tend to be smaller, but tend to be more, are not paid as quickly. So is there something that you can comment on this question? Thank you.
Yes, of course. Do you want me to comment now or wait?
Yes, please, because the question is if you can answer to this question live. This is the request.
So I'm sorry, Calliope, you should wait a little bit. No, the question is very important and I thank you. Okay, so let's start for the weighted average and the simple averages are not differing much. So there is, of course, the possibility to pay before a bigger invoice than a smaller one, but the data from an aggregated point of view are not showing this as a tendency or as something that is widespread. Okay, so I can believe that 22,000 public administration can manage differently this issue. Normally there are different controls and smaller invoices. So I believe also that the control is the time to control a bigger invoice is larger. So the data from an aggregated point of view, they do not show a big difference. This is very important. Also, from when we started analyzing the single sectors, we discovered, and that was a surprise also for me, because I'm a researcher actually, so I like to set conclusions after seeing the data. And for the construction sector, micro and small enterprises are better paid and quicker paid than larger enterprises. This I was surprised because I didn't expect such a results, but we made an official publication on this. It's in Italian. I can, if you want, then I can share. We already sent it to the commission, and in this publication we can demonstrate that small, micro, small, and medium also enterprises are paid better. So it really depends. The private companies are very important, in my opinion, to show single problems, qualitative problems, and then to point out which administrations are not paying well. But when it's time to aggregate numbers and make averages, our numbers, believe me, are the best.
Thank you very much, Alessandro. I would like now, as time presses on, I would like to move to Kelly from the Luxembourg Chamber of Commerce. Kelly is tax and legal advisor of the Chamber of Commerce of Luxembourg, if I'm correct. And Kelly will present something very interesting because we don't hear much about Luxembourg. It's also because it doesn't show, it's not collected by data collection measures and tools. So, but we hear that there are problems there as well of late payment by the government. So please, Kelly, enlighten us. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Antonella. Thank you. Indeed, actually, in 2023, when the European Commission published the proposal for a regulation, directive or / regulation for the revision of the late payment directive, we started to analyzing and to see if there is a problem in Luxembourg on late payments, because actually we wanted to see if there is indeed problem in a small country as Luxembourg or not at all. So we didn't need to go any further. So what we did is we launched a survey in 2023 asking the Luxembourg companies to tell us if they have problems on late payments, specifically to B2B and the G2B transaction. We had the survey open only for 2 months, and in this period, we had already 250 companies that replied to the questionnaire. So what we saw as a first result was that 85% of companies in Luxembourg experienced excessively long payment periods, either from another company or from a public authority. Now I'm not going to go any further to the B2B. If you need, I can send you later on the link on the survey so you can see also the results from the B2B transaction. But going more into details for them from the G2B transactions now, when we raise the question, how often do public entities pay you after the deadline agreed in the contract? Then 35% of companies replied that public authorities, late payments by public authorities are often and affect up to 25% of their turnover. And then regarding the payment by those authorities, if they pay the late interest and flat fee compensation, as it is in the current directive, 65% of companies stated that they never received late payment interest, either the compensation fee. So we realized then, of course, that there was indeed problem also in Luxembourg from public authorities. And when we went a little bit further on the analysis, and we had discussions with federation and association in Luxembourg, we received a more detailed feedback one from the construction sector and the other one from the autobus sector. So in the construction sector, it was mentioned that it was particularly affected with long verification procedures, delaying the payments. It was also the fact that the legislation in Luxembourg on public procurement includes provision for payment terms, but the verification process often extends the payment period significantly. This practice forces construction companies to finance ongoing work for extended periods, which is especially challenging for small companies, for SMEs. It was also highlighted by the construction sector that member states should be obliged to make their payment procedure more efficient and include the verification period within the deadline principle of 30 days. On the other hand, we had also some interesting feedback from the autobus sector, and then again it was mentioned that there are frequent payment delays from the state, often due to bad budgeting constraints or problems with software systems. But mainly the problem was because the authorities in Luxembourg, they don't budget the work within the year of the service, and they often pay on the year after. So that was from my side the short feedback that I can provide you from Luxembourg. I don't know if you have any questions for me. Please feel free to put it in the Q&A. Thank you.
From my side, Kelly, I'd like to thank you very much because your presentation allowed to shed light on this important problem that the late payment, especially, for example, in the construction sector, because I was also reading the result of the survey that you carried out. The late payment, especially in the construction sector, then translates into late payment from businesses to businesses. And indeed, one of the main reasons that your Luxembourgish companies reported why you are paid, why do you pay late, is that because I am being paid late in turn. So the problem of the late payment by the public authorities, and this is in the case of the construction sector, is paradigmatic, is very exemplary, kickstarts a chain of reaction that then widespreads in the supply chain. So I think this is very, very, very important and very relevant. I have also two questions in the chat, and in particular refers to the construction sector in Italy. But I think it's also you touch about this, Kelly, is basically the problem with the verification procedure. In the case of Italy, there is these questions and saying the construction sector, the payment delay is basically the delay in the emission of the work progress report. This work progress report, just to indicate, it's a document that indicates the end of the verification procedure and allows for the payment to be processed. Do you have something similar in Luxembourg? Is it do you think the main problems, especially in the construction sector, payment delays by the public sector? Is it only a matter of budgeting, or is because these verification procedures take too long? What are the main reasons in your views?
I think the main reasons is that well, the construction, of course, may take time. It takes time. Also, we can see that in Luxembourg, and of course, it can take months or years to finalize a work. And then when all this period, the company has to deal with all the invoicing and all the expenses that has to be paid. Plus, after the work has been released, the problem is that it may take long to finalize the verification process, and also sometimes it also takes long if there is a problem in the work or something to be reviewed or to be to change or I don't know, any technical issue. There's, of course, will delay further and further to finalize the verification process. So this is the feedback that we received from the sector.
And I suppose that many of the companies in Luxembourg in the construction sector are SMEs, mostly
SMEs.
SMEs.
Yeah.
Are SMEs.
Yeah.
Are
And of
SMEs.
course, there is of course that affects the turnover of the company. They cannot proceed to new project because actually they are back from previous project. They are not paid, so of course they cannot go further and invest to something, work on something new. Yeah.
So it affects their growth as well, and
Yeah, of
and the
course.
possibility to take part in new
A
projects.
new project. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much, Kelly. That was extremely interesting. Also, the data that you provided, I found in particularly disheartening the fact that I was reading from your survey that 63, almost 63% of cases, the Luxembourg public sector, when it pays late, does not pay interests. And this is also something that is
But I think this is the case also for the B2B. It's not only for the G2B, but actually we don't enforce the rules already mentioned in the directive on B2B and G2B. Yeah.
So that's quite interesting. Thank you very much for this. I still have one question in the chat. And I think Alessandro, I think you can read it as well. It's I think it's an appeal from the construction sector in Italy. There are still 2,000 companies that are still waiting to get paid. So around is 250 million of outstanding payments. So if there is something that an appeal that we can launch from this seminar today, it's if you can, it's something that can be looked at, because this is really something very important for SMEs. As we said, the construction sector is a sector that is made particularly by SMEs, especially as subcontractors, because we are very much concerned by subcontractors. Construction works is not only the main contractor, but all the supply chain of subcontractors. So any comment you would like to offer on this, it would be useful. Thank you, Alessandro, and thank you, Kelly.
Yeah, thank you, Kelly, and thank you, Antonella. Yes, okay. Of course, there are problems. We are dealing with 22,000 public administrations, around 800,000 companies. But from an average and quantitative point of view, these problems that are very important for the single company are not so evident when you aggregate numbers, because 2,000 construction companies are 3% of the companies that we investigated when we made our research, because we took into account 62,000 companies, construction companies, to make our results. Okay, so it's important. Those 2,000 companies have to be helped, of course. They have all the reasons, but in general, this is not the case for all the sector. That's very important to underline. I mean, when you have 2,000 companies and they express some problems, we have 62,000 companies that on average are paid well, okay, on time. Also, the amount of money, it's a tiny fraction. I mean, only in the first semester of 2024, we had more than 15 billions of euros, okay, so that have been paid. So it's what has been written. It's important. Of course, there is already, you can see there, the ministries are take a note of that. But from a general point of view, the construction companies are paid even better. And in particular, small, micro and small construction companies in Italy. So that's very important. Of course, those criticalities, it's very important that they underline them, that they stress them, but these specific criticalities have to be qualified as they are. So specific. In general, okay, on average, the situation it's good, and it's even so from some aspects better than other sectors.
Grazie Alessandro, thank you very much for sharing your views on this very important matter. Again, I can see another comment from the importance of the construction sector that is being really it's a sector that is facing a lot of challenges, especially for SMEs. We have heard now the cases of Luxembourg together with the case of Italy. And if you can see the annual report of the Payment Observatory, the construction sector is actually a sector that is facing challenges all over Europe. So this is something that we take, as European Commission, we take to our heart. And we hope that indeed in the ongoing negotiations for the revision of the late payment directive, this is something that is also taken into account. I don't see any other questions at the moment, so I would like to thank all the Alessandro and Kelly and Beatrice and her team for presenting the report, but also our distinguished guests for their comments, their views, the information that they provided. And I'd like also to answer all the participants that have been here, same number since the beginning. This is very, very encouraging. So thank you very much for your attention. And we will see again for our next appointment on the next event of European Payment Observatory. This presentation is recorded. This webinar has been recorded. The presentation will be made available. But if you have any further questions, do not hesitate to get in touch with us. Thank you very much and have a nice day. Bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.